Hello! Today we're going to take our bikes on a ferry to get to our destination, and I'm talking about the big overnight ferries. This is also to answer a few viewer questions about this. So going on one of these big ferries is fantastic actually to start your journey that way, or end for that matter. Just getting on the ferry and spend some time, just beers, food, good night's sleep, a nice breakfast before you roll off the ferry and you're in this new location and can start your adventures. So great way to travel. And I've got quite a lot of ferry experience. I've gone from Sweden to Latvia on the ferry, to Poland, to Germany. I've gone from Holland to England. And last in this video, just as a treat, I'll show you my experience with the more adventurous big ferries in the Mediterranean, going from Turkey to Greece and also from Greece to Italy on ferries. Completely different, very interesting experience. So stay tuned for that. So let's go through the whole bike on a ferry from start to finish. So before I even leave home, or at least the day that I'm going to the ferry, I repack a bit. I make sure that I have one grab bag on the bike. It could be my backpack or one small bag on the bike with the stuff that I need on the ferry. So just think that you're leaving your bike, you're taking one bag with you, toiletries, some civil clothes, a pair of normal shoes that you can use on the ferry because it's an overnighter and you're going to spend all evening there. So I make sure I have that, and if I'm starting my adventure, I can later repack to fit something else. We start by arriving at the ferry terminal. In this case, it's in Gothenburg, the ferry to Germany. And they all work pretty much the same. You have one area where you end up in first, which is the lanes or just waiting queues for the check-in kiosks there. So you want to check in, and when it's your turn, you just pull up there, and I usually show my passport because they can pull my booking from my passport. So no need for printed tickets or anything really. And if I'm in a group that's on the same booking, I just collect all the passports and give the whole bunch to the check-in person there. I receive back the boarding cards and the keys for the cabin. Usually we book cabins going on overnight trips. So yeah, and the last thing you get is a lane number. So when you leave the check-in kiosk there and carry on towards the ferry, you got lane number 3. So we, in this case, hypothetical, you follow lane number 3 until the lane stops. And yeah, for vehicles in front of you or something. And usually the lane you get is for motorcycles, or what they decided to where to have the motorcycles, because the motorcycles are parking in the same area. They have motorcycle parking on the ferry, and they want to board all the bikes at the same time. And that's usually before all the normal cars or after, depending on if the motorcycle parking is in the front or the rear of the ferry. So, but you just stay there, and when it's your turn, someone from the staff is going to wave you in. Okay, bikes, come on. You ride on to the ferry, and yeah, and you will have guidance all the way. People waving, come this way, and so on. So you will find the parking spot without a problem. And they will sort of guide you to where to park and how close and everything. But the thing first thing you're going to look for is On the floor you have these anchor points. They could be in the shape of rings to fasten things in, or a cross, just a hole in the ground on either side. And that's where we're gonna fasten the straps to strap the bike and secure it. So, and you want those just where you're sitting, because it's going over the saddle. So that's something you can aim for, but they help you do that. So we parked, you leave the first gear in gear, yeah, so that the bike cannot roll, and put it on the side stand. At this point, because it normally takes a little while before you get the straps, two scenarios here. The most common that I'm used to is that someone provides you with a strap, a classic ratchet strap. So before I get that, I usually take off my jacket and my armor vest, and I will actually use that before I strap the bike, because when you get the straps, I usually, since I have the layers, so I use my armor jacket and place that over the saddle, because you're gonna put that strap over the saddle, and then you're gonna fasten it and tighten it, and that digs into your saddle pretty much. So in the morning when you take it off, you will have a groove in your saddle for a while until it goes out again. And so I leave my jacket, armor jacket, or some gloves, or just something that can spread the load on the saddle a little bit. You get the straps, hook it into one side over the bike, and you just tension it until the bike is really secure. And from here, you're pretty free to just leave the bike and head for the nearest stairwell up to sort of the main decks. But you will see people doing different here. Some people just take everything from the bike, riding gear on, everything, helmet, boots, as many bags as they can carry. And I did that to start with, but then you may have 3 or 4 narrow stairwells going up, and you'll be pretty exhausted before you hit your cabin. So I tend to take less and less. So my thing right now is that I have my normal shoes accessible. I already taken my jacket off and used that under the straps for the saddle. I get out of my riding boots and just put them under the bike. I put on the normal shoes. So now I have just riding pants, normal shoes, and whatever top I'm having. I pack in my little Ferry bag that I have, let's say the backpack. Of course, I take all my small valuables like the navigator, the cameras, and stuff like that. If I have a tank bag, I usually have all my valuables in there, so I take the tank bag. But that's pretty much it. I even leave the helmet on the bike normally. Just the small, expensive, easy grabs I take away. Remember to take the key, but more importantly, where you put it, because there's nothing more stressing than when you come back the morning and it's a bit, you need to get on the bike and leave the ferry. We'll get to that, but not finding the key is pretty stressful, so place it somewhere safe. So I normally leave the bike with most of my gear. Never had a problem with that. A good advice when you leave your bike to head up to your cabin, before you leave, make sure that you take notice of which stairwell that you use. It's usually a color or a number or a combination like blue 5, because I forget things like that. I usually take a picture of the blue 5 staircase, because then it's much easier to find your way back. Because ferry is a maze sometimes. Then of course you just go up the stairs, get your cabin, have a beer, a nice dinner, and a good night's sleep in a proper bed. And I love sleeping on ferries, by the way. And then in the morning, have some breakfast. And car deck normally opens half an hour before they pull the ramp down, or something like that, sometimes 15 minutes. But no rush. If I left all my gear on the bike, I still have time to go to the bike, do my stuff, get back into the boots and everything. So, and from there it's nothing complicated, of course. So there's not much to it, but it can be nice to be prepared like this before going on a ferry the first time with a bike, because you might worry for nothing. And yeah, let me tell you about the Mediterranean experience instead. And that's level 3, I think, adventure style, because you need to manage to get a ferry ticket somehow, which was in our cases mostly from some office, cash only, going to the ATM because you didn't have enough cash and so on. Then going down to the harbor. And it's a big pier with like a big parking lot for big ferries, and you need to find out in the confusion where your ferry is gonna back up and just drop the ramp. There's people everywhere. There's trucks, there's cars, there's pedestrians, there's bikes and everything. And since everyone is equally important, of course, everyone gets to board at the same time. So yeah, you get on there and you need 360 vision, and it's a bit chaotic. You get your bike parked pretty much the same way with the straps, so that's nice. And then we make our way up to main deck where we want to get something to eat. So first you need to navigate yourself around all the people lying everywhere. Just finding out that it was not that easy to get anything at all. So you figure it's just as well try to go to sleep to be rested in the morning. And you try to find the most luxurious stairwell that you can find, and try to catch some sleep there, because there's no other place to sleep than wherever you see a square meter of space. When you just closed your eyes, the ferry just stopped at the party island Corfu and adds even more people to the mix. But you also have the options, as we also did on the next ferry, which was the more quiet zone, which was outside on dog deck, where you can really enjoy a quiet beer and get some well-deserved sleep so that you are rested when you leave the ferry the next morning. So, but guess which ferry ride that gives you most stories to tell when you get home. So yeah, quite a different experience, but all ferries I've gotten on to on northern mainland Europe and the islands and the Scandinavias and so on. Super simple, very comfortable, and not a worry in the world. So, all right, hope you liked this one, and good sailings on the 7 seas. If you want more tutorials and knowing more stuff, you have my sort of ADV school videos. And there's also a newsletter to sign up to on my website, baldinger.se. Link in the description. And see you next time. Watch something else now, will you?